From the Cardinal Television Studios, I am Caitlin Murphy with your Fisher News Brief. It's Immigration 101. Texas teachers are getting schooled on how to address students who fear their parents will be deported. The Austin Teachers Union held a workshop Saturday morning where teachers were sent home with immigration checklists to give students. It tells them what to do if an immigration officer comes knocking on their door. Things like checking if an agent has a signed warrant, remaining silent if there is an arrest, and contacting an attorney before signing any documents.
It's a hard topic to talk about with children, but I think it's important that children and teenagers know what are the consequences. If something like this happens, there needs to be a plan in place.
This fear has been stoked, in part, by the unexpected deportation of a Mexican immigrant last week who was forced to leave her teen children behind. Mexico's foreign ministry warned Mexican citizens living in the U.S. to take precautions as crackdowns on illegal immigration are expected to be rampant. Pyongyang has test-fired another missile. The U.S. official says that it was an intermediate-range ballistic missile. Sources say it was launched from a province in the country's north. It traveled around 300 miles, some 500 kilometers, before landing in the Sea of Japan, also known as the East Sea. CNN's Matt Rivers has more.
Well, this is the kind of test that South Korean officials say they have seen before, this intermediate range rocket, something that has been tested by the North Koreans as recently as last year. In fact, 8 different times in 2016, this type of missile was tested, although defense officials say 7 of those 8 tests in 2016 were considered to be a failure. They're still studying the test that happened around 7:55 a.m. South Korea time this morning, trying to determine whether this is a successful test or a failed attempt. But the fact of the matter is, it's not the test that many people were expecting, given the rhetoric that we have heard recently out of Pyongyang. Kim Jong-un said that his regime back on January 1st, in fact, was getting close to the final stages of being able to test an intercontinental ballistic missile, something they haven't done before. That's a missile with a much larger range that would be capable of hitting a target like, let's say, the mainland of the United States. They have never conducted that kind of a test before, but most experts will tell you it is now a matter of when rather than if, given that the Kim Jong-un regime seems highly motivated to be able to do so. One other thing of note here is that the Musudan missile, as it's called, that was tested this morning is slightly different than the versions that were tested last year, because South Korean officials suspect that it might have a different engine on it, an upgraded engine that might allow it to be launched that much faster should the North Koreans choose to do so. But the fact remains that no matter what kind of missile was launched this morning, this is a situation that Donald Trump and his brand new administration are going to have to deal with now. The new president facing his first crisis with North Korea, certainly an issue he's going to have to deal with throughout his presidency. Matt Rivers, CNN, Seoul.
People across Mexico are taking to the streets this hour to protest U.S. President Donald Trump. 17 marches are planned in a bid to unify the country. Tensions between the two nations are soaring over Mr. Trump's policies on immigration, trade, and of course his proposed separation wall. Valentine's Day is coming up, and florists are filling their shops with Colombian flowers. According to the Colombian government, the country has dispatched more than 500 million flowers to the U.S. ahead of Valentine's Day. Until last November, Colombia exported more than 225,000 tons of flowers, which amounts to more than $1 million in sales. The flower market in Colombia grew 18% between 2012 and 2016, since florists have increased their production, according to Colombian officials. And that's all of today's headlines. I am Caitlin Murphy for Fisher News Brief.